I mean, I could say for me socially, like growing up, the friendship perspective was really hard. I feel like, having people over to my house and like trying to kind of screen out at a young age who I wanted to have come over, who I was willing to let see that. Like, kids are brutal these days. They talk about everyone's personal business. And I feel like when we were younger too, like that was the merging of social media and all those things. And I feel like it was really difficult initially to kind of learn who you can trust and who you can't. And it's not that I'm ashamed of my sister. I just wouldn't want to put her in a position where people are out there judging her for no reason. The friendship perspective, I think, was really a challenging one for me.
The people you surround yourself with have to be compassionate, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Not even just like compassionate, but just understanding and like, hey, maybe it's time that we go somewhere else in the house to give her space to go like deal with what she needs to deal with and not feel like now the pressure's on to like kind of figure out why she's acting that way, get her to calm down, plus also attend to a guest. Like it gets a little overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
I definitely lost a lot of friends in high school. So my older brother, we're 2 years apart, but we were a grade apart growing up. And his behaviors were very explosive, especially in high school. So I remember I would be walking down the hallway and people would come find me like, did you hear what your brother did today? And I'm like, no, but I'm sure you're gonna tell me. So he would often have outbursts too when like my friends were over in the house, and two of my best friends to this day, we're still great friends. They were there for probably one of his worst outbursts, and now I know like after that day, they were still my best friends.
For life.
Yes, and you know what? I was just in one of their weddings, and they will forever be my friends because if you can handle that and you're gonna stick by me through this, and you're not gonna, they didn't make comments, they didn't make fun of him. I did have people that did make fun of him, and I haven't spoken to them since. And then as far as like my little brother, taking him out in public, he's very loud. You hear him coming from a mile away, but he's super cute. I am fortunate I work here. My best friends work here too. So they love him, they accept him, and so I'm very fortunate in that sense that everybody loves Matt. And if you don't love Matt, well, we're not friends.
F you. So, so it's about finding the circle of people
finding your group. And that's one thing I talk a lot to my home cases about. I used to find myself just like chatting with the parents. One mom in particular, she was like, my friends, like they just don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, and they're not going to. But you're going to find people along the way that do get it, and those are your people. And it's all about finding your circle. And like, especially when you have a child or a sibling that's diagnosed with autism, like the people that are in your life at the time, they might not be your forever people because they might not get it, but you're going to find those people along the way that are going to stick with you, and those are your people.
I think that was very well said. I could agree with that a lot. I also want to add too that I struggled with friendships, but from a little bit different perspective in that certain people who entered my life couldn't understand the responsibilities I had as a sibling of somebody on the spectrum. They just couldn't understand, like there might be some nights that I'm not able to come out because there is something going on within the home that I need to be a part of. Not understanding me participating in my brother's sessions as opposed to going out with them to play. Like that was important to me. It was important to my family. I wanted to be a part of it. Just not really understanding, the responsibilities that it takes to have a sibling with a disability.
That's well put.
Like Alyssa said, you find your people and, you hold on to them. Because if there's people that are going to sit through that and, not judge you and not judge him, you really want to keep them around.
Yeah. Rita, I can totally commiserate with you, and I understand what you're saying in that, like, now I'm taking a different approach. Like, there's a lack of understanding here. This is an opportunity for me to share what I know and teach. Make it a teachable moment, not a punitive moment. And I think that's shifted a lot for me. But that was really hard too growing up.
I experienced it. And I noticed though, my daughter became very compassionate. My daughter had a party at the house and my little guy like stripped down, got naked, and initially, the girls were screaming and stuff. They were young, and but they kept coming over and they started developing a compassion. And then I was just so proud of our daughter for like just having that, and it carried through. And the thing I've noticed about siblings with autism is that I see a lot of real compassion out of those folks, like this. In different ways, just the responsibility that often occurs even accidentally, accountability. A lot of siblings take a lot of accountability, they're very compassionate, and at times I worry sometimes could be too sensitive because of everything they've been through, and not every sibling obviously, but any other on that topic?
Also relationships, like getting into relationships.
Yeah.
Having a sibling with a disability also shifted my perspective on like, if you're coming into this household and you're uncomfortable, that's okay. But if you don't learn to get used to that feeling of being uncomfortable.
I was like really protective of who I brought around my sister because like she's a really routine-based person, and once she feels like those are her people too. Like so if I went through a breakup, like I felt like she was equally going through like a loss of a person. And so like same thing, like I was really selective of who I wanted to bring around her because I'm like I didn't want her to lose a relationship that I brought into the house too.
Yeah.